It is the Sports Fix here on Flow FM, and the NBA Finals, they are getting more interesting by the day. We've got a couple of series winners already through, and some series that look like they may go the distance. Jeremy Wolhfart joins me on the line right now to go through what's been a fascinating opening week of NBA playoffs action. G'day, mate. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Probably should say opening 10 days. We did start talking about the opening of a couple of series last week, but hasn't the last week been interesting? We're right into the teeth of some of these series now, and in fact, we've got a couple of teams that are already through to the conference semi-finals in Miami and Boston. The 1 and 2 seeds got through pretty comfortably in the end.
It was expected, really, I think, from the Miami perspective with Atlanta, coming in via the play-in. But, Boston, Brooklyn, you would have really have pegged a much more competitive series. And, Brooklyn weren't blown out by any means. I think their worst loss was by 7 or 8 points, so nothing too egregious in terms of final score, but they just could not find a way to get past Boston, who are really the informed team in the playoffs right now.
They couldn't get it done down the stretch against the Celtics at the end, but you're right, they were in most of all 4 of the games and had their chances in all 4 of them, but down the stretch Boston were just too good, and now the bickering and infighting has started at Brooklyn, and Ben Simmons, lots of talk about him, what his future holds, but for now we'll park that to one side because the rest of the playoffs continue on, and Boston, as you said, maybe the form team of the playoffs at the moment. But there's some fascinating series still going on. Now, the 76ers and Toronto. Philadelphia lead this 3-2. They had a good start in this series, and I think they'll end up winning the series and taking on Miami in the conference semis. And they might just be the Smokies of the playoffs on either side of the draw.
Well, it would be a big blow as far as the 76ers are concerned. They really went all in this year with that James Harden trade. But the Raptors, they're a very well-coached team. They're very much always going to be a competitive team in the playoffs, even though they're arguably less talented than the Sixers. But it sort of reminds me of the saying, a champion team will be a team of champions. And, Joel Embiid, an MVP candidate, but then you look at, what's James Harden bringing? He's actually not bringing what the 76ers traded for, the person to bring them over the hump. And, it's by no means over, but yeah, the Raptors just seem to have that momentum heading into Game 6, and if they put them away there, they get a little bit of a break before the next round heads in. And yeah, as far as smoky teams go, you want those teams that are well coached, which is why the Spurs were always contenders in their heyday. They had Greg Popovich. His coaching really brought out the best in players like Tony Parker and Tim Duncan, etc. So I agree. I think if the Raptors can get through the 76ers, who on paper at least are the most star-studded team in the East now that the Nets are out, quite a lot could go their way, and they could end up going all the way to the finals.
Milwaukee, the Bucks, they're doing what we expected them to do against the Bulls. They'll win that series. They're 3-1 up at the moment, and history tells us that winning 3 games on the trot in any playoff series is nigh on impossible, particularly if you're out of form like the Bulls are at the moment. So I think it's funny, isn't it? The Eastern Conference was such a tight conference on the ladder throughout the season, and we've had a couple of blowout series to start things, where in the West we had such a bit of a blowout regular season, and now we've got 4 tight series to start the playoffs. So it's like they've swapped conferences.
As far as the West is concerned, I did not expect quite a few of these performances from the lower seeds. I thought it would be whitewash city as far as the West is concerned. It's just not happened that way. We've only had 1 sweep in the first round period. I was expecting a few more. I wasn't expecting the likes of the Pelicans to really show that grit that they have so far. But, that's good for the playoffs, having a good competitive series. And who knows? We could still have that very big upset yet.
Well, we could. The Pelicans are clinging on. Once it gets to Game 6, it's a coin toss. Game 7, it's a coin toss. And the Pelicans have still got one more win to get there. Phoenix at the moment leading 3-2, the most winningest team in basketball at the moment, the Phoenix Suns. So they're still favourites to win that and probably will. But who knows? Well done to the Pelicans for clinging on. There is another series. In fact, there are two other series that have 3-2 scorelines at the moment. What about Minnesota and Memphis? Now, this series could already be over. Minnesota they've choked. There's no other way to put it. They've trailed 3-2 at the moment, but they really should have won this series already 4-1.
Well, that's right. They've blown a 25-point lead twice in the one game. Not once, twice. And then, the most recent Game 5, they were up by 11 heading into the final quarter, and they just could not close it out. The Grizzlies have been very disappointing, it must be said, but Minnesota have just not found a way to close out these games. And you don't get many opportunities against top 4 seeds in the first round to really do what the Timberwolves should have done. Obviously, they haven't. That takes a mental toll, knowing that you can have it wrapped up by now and you have not been able to do it. I mean, taking nothing away from players like Ja Morant and that who have shown up when the chips are down. But as far as the Timberwolves are concerned, they just need to find clutch players, and they just don't seem to have that. So I'll be shocked if the Timberwolves can get up. But again, you can never be 100% certain. So it comes down to Game 6. They show some resolve. They get that job done. They'll be playing with house money because I don't think anyone would have expected Grizzlies Timberwolves to go to a 7-game series. So starting Game 6, they show they can get that done, and then, like you said, Game 7 is always a coin toss.
Yep, exactly. We'll get to another Game 6 in a moment, but the Warriors and Denver, Golden State are doing what we thought they would do to Denver in the end. Denver have been plucky, but Golden State have just been too good. So they lead 3-1 at the moment and will likely win that series going through to the conference semifinals. But what about the other series between Dallas and Utah? This has been a beauty. At the moment, Dallas leading 3-2, the Mavericks, and the Jazz, well, they would be bitterly disappointed with what they dished up in Game 5. And I think that might be the turning point for mine. The Mavericks just, they smashed them in the end down the stretch, 102-77. No offense for the Jazz in this series really to speak of.
No, Utah fall under the well-coached category. You put teams like the Spurs and the Heat and the Raptors in that they don't have the biggest star power, but they have the best coaching, and they've been really well served by Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. But yeah, it's especially when you look at this game, Donovan Mitchell had 9 points. That is your star player. You're not going to win a playoff game with your best player scoring 9 points. It's just not going to happen. Dallas, when it came to scoring, 102 is really neither here or there for a playoff game. Luka Doncic went crazy. He had 33 points. Jalen Brunson, he had 24. And then it was almost nothing else. It was just pretty much those two pairing up for well over half their points. So the opportunity was there. Their defensively, Utah did fine, but that's a very tough pill to swallow, that blowout. And it'll come down again. They're going to be playing Game 6 in Utah. They're going to make that homestand there. They have to find a way to get the ball in the basket, as cliched as that sounds. Force Game 7. 77 points is just not going to cut it.
Totally agree, mate. That's where we'll leave it today. We're out of time. Enjoy the NBA through the week. Well done to your pal for having a win on the weekend as well. And we'll catch up again next week, mate.
Thank you.